She's bleeding. Grab a towel, now." The father's voice echoed through the house, panic laced in every syllable. His wife knelt beside the babysitter, who was curled into herself on the hardwood floor, whimpering through clenched teeth. Blood pooled beneath her elbow where the bite had landed. Just a few feet away, their German shepherd, Max, stood stiffly, ears pinned, eyes wild, chest heaving like he'd just run a marathon. And in the corner of the room, their toddler stood silently, untouched. Only hours earlier, everything had seemed perfectly normal. The parents, Michael and Jenna, had left for their first date night in months, reassured by the smiling, soft-spoken sitter, Emily. She had come highly recommended by a neighbor, and her calm, nurturing energy put Jenna at ease almost immediately. Max, usually wary of strangers, had sniffed her hand cautiously but made no noise, no growl, no bark, just observation. That alone had surprised Michael. Max was a trained protection dog, a German shepherd with a long lineage of discipline and instinct. If he was quiet, it meant he didn't perceive danger. Right? They had barely made it to their dinner reservation when Jenna's phone rang. At first, she thought it was a pocket dial, but the sound on the other end was nothing short of chaos. Screaming, barking, a crashing sound. Then a single phrase, desperate and breathless. "I need help. Your dog. He bit me. Please." They raced home in 10 minutes flat. By the time they arrived, Emily was on the floor sobbing, and Max was locked in the garage. Their son, Noah, was in his crib upstairs, safe and asleep. But the fear lingered. The uncertainty. Why would Max attack someone inside their home? Someone who was trusted to watch over their child. They rushed Emily to the emergency room. The bite on her arm was deep and would leave a scar. Hospital staff called animal control, but Michael insisted on handling it privately. "There has to be a reason," he said. "Max wouldn't do this for no reason." That night, while Jenna lay awake in guilt and confusion, Michael pored over the home security footage. There were cameras in every main room, just part of being a cautious parent. He clicked on the feed from the living room and fast-forwarded to an hour after they'd left. The footage showed Emily sitting on the couch with her phone. Noah crawled on the carpet near her, babbling to himself. Max lay near the corner, calm and alert. At first, nothing seemed off, but then the tone changed. Emily stood up, annoyed, as Noah reached for a TV remote on the floor. She yanked it from his hands with more force than necessary. Max's ears twitched. Seconds later, the situation escalated. Emily grabbed Noah by the arm, too hard. He started crying. She hissed something under her breath and gave a slight shove to his tiny body. Max stood instantly. Michael hit pause. His heart pounded in his chest as he rewound and played the moment again. Max had watched everything, without moving, until that precise shove. Then his stance changed. He stepped forward, tail low, eyes fixed on Emily. The moment continued. Emily picked Noah up and plopped him onto the couch roughly. He started wailing. Max barked once, short and loud. Emily turned, startled. She said something sharp to Max and waved her hand dismissively. But Max didn't move. Then she raised her hand, like she might strike the toddler. That's when Max lunged. The screen flashed as Emily stumbled backward, her forearm raised to shield herself. Max bit, then released. Just once. Enough to make her fall. Enough to stop her. Michael's hand covered his mouth. His eyes were wide, wet with disbelief. Max hadn't attacked. He had protected. The rest of the video showed Max pacing between Emily and the baby, never attacking again, just standing his ground, tail low, posture stiff. When the sirens finally echoed on the recording and Michael and Jenna came rushing in, Max calmly backed away, surrendering. Michael hit stop. Jenna stood in the doorway, eyes full of dread. "Did you find out why?" she asked. He turned slowly, voice cracking. "He saved our son." The sun had barely risen when Michael sat in the kitchen, laptop open, fingers trembling above the keyboard. Jenna stood nearby, cradling a cup of untouched coffee, staring at Max through the glass door that separated the living room from the garage. He sat patiently, upright, his amber eyes focused on nothing and everything at once. Loyal, alert, still waiting for someone to tell him if he'd done good or wrong. "I keep replaying it in my head," Jenna whispered. "What if we hadn't come home? What if Max hadn't been there?" Michael didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the video frame paused on his screen. Max standing between their son and the babysitter, lips curled just enough to warn, but never savage, never unprovoked. He was trained to defend, not destroy, and that's exactly what he had done. Animal control was scheduled to come later that afternoon for a behavioral assessment, standard procedure, but word had already started to spread. Emily had posted about the attack online, painting herself as a victim. Photos of her bandaged arm circulated through local community groups. People were commenting, angry, afraid, calling Max dangerous. The police had called earlier to say they'd be by to get a full picture of the incident. But Michael had a sinking feeling that the truth wouldn't be enough, not when the optics looked so bad. "People are going to think he's a threat," Jenna said softly. "They'll say he should be put down." Michael's jaw clenched. Not happening. But Emily wasn't done. Later that morning, a knock at the door brought a wave of nausea over Jenna. 2 officers stood with polite but firm expressions. "We need to speak with both of you," one said. Inside, they reviewed the report. Emily claimed Max had attacked without warning, lunged aggressively, knocked her into a table. She insisted Noah was in the next room, not involved at all. "Do you have any footage that might contradict this?" the second officer asked almost cautiously. Michael exhaled hard and opened the laptop. For the next 5 minutes the room was silent. The only sounds came from the recording. Noah's giggles, a sharp thud, a bark, Emily's yell. Then the unmistakable noise of Max's claws sliding on the wood as he moved. The officers leaned forward. "Replay that part," one said, "right before he jumps." Michael did. They watched as Emily raised her arm, clearly about to strike the child, not in discipline, but rage. The dog responded, not with wild aggression, but with measured force. 1 bite, 1 warning, then stillness. "Your dog didn't attack her," the officer murmured. "He protected the boy." Jenna broke down. Michael leaned back, hands covering his face. "So, what happens now?" The senior officer looked between the couple. "We'll file our report, but if Emily chooses to press charges, it could still get messy." Animal control arrived an hour later. A calm woman named Lydia stepped into the garage with soft body language, carefully approaching Max with treats in her pocket and respect in her posture. Max didn't bark, he didn't growl. He allowed her near, allowed her to touch his harness. She knelt, whispering to him, testing for triggers, tension, signs of aggression. She found none. "You've got a good dog," she said, standing. "What happened here is rare. Most dogs wouldn't know how to act in that moment. He did." As she packed up her things, Jenna followed her to the door. "What are the chances they try to take him from us?" Lydia hesitated. "If the story gets big enough? If the wrong people get involved? It's possible. But if you go public with the footage, show the full truth, you may have a fighting chance." Michael stood up that night and did just that. He uploaded the full video. No edits, no music, no captions, just raw footage. The title read, "This is what really happened. Our dog saved our child." It went viral within hours. Comment sections exploded. People flooded in to support Max. "This dog is a hero." German Shepherds are incredibly intuitive and loyal. "Thank God he was there." "Put that woman in jail, not the dog." Videos analyzing the footage appeared across platforms. Trainers praised Max's reaction as controlled, intelligent, and textbook protective behavior. But not everyone was convinced. Emily responded with her own video, tearfully accusing the family of manipulation, saying she feared for her life, that Max snapped, that the baby was never in danger. Lines were drawn. Some wanted Max removed, others wanted Emily charged with abuse. One thing was certain: the story had ignited something far bigger than any of them expected. By the next morning, Michael and Jenna's street was no longer just a quiet suburban cul-de-sac. News vans lined the pavement. Reporters camped near the mailbox, clutching microphones and snapping photos of the front porch. The headline had spread like wildfire: German Shepherd attacks babysitter, hero or threat. Inside, the family home felt more like a pressure cooker than a safe haven. Jenna peeked through the blinds, pulse racing. They're everywhere. Michael was already on the phone trying to schedule a legal consult. We need a lawyer before this turns into something we can't control. In the garage, Max waited, silent, loyal, unaware that the world was now deciding his fate. Meanwhile, the video continued gaining momentum. Animal rights activists posted their reactions, praising Max as a symbol of trained instinct. Dog behaviorists uploaded detailed breakdowns of the footage, showing how Max assessed the situation before making a split-second decision. His ears flattened, pupils dilated, but he never lunged in rage. Every movement was calculated. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. That dog didn't attack, he intervened. There's a difference. But as support grew, so did the backlash. Emily's family hired an attorney. In a press conference, they stood beside her as she appeared in a sling, voice cracking with emotion. "I loved that little boy like my own," she said, "but that dog, he turned on me." They announced plans to pursue legal action, both criminal and civil. The threat was now real. If they succeeded, Max could be seized and euthanized under public safety laws. It didn't matter how many people called him a hero. The law would judge the facts, and if twisted the wrong way, it could be fatal. Michael refused to let that happen. "I want to talk to the judge," he said, pacing. "Not in court, just to tell our side. There has to be a way." Jenna looked at him with tired eyes. "And say what? That our dog knew more than a human babysitter?" Michael turned toward the monitor. On it, Noah was asleep, curled with a blanket, one small sock sticking out from under his stuffed giraffe. "Number. That our dog knew what love looked like, and what danger didn't." They weren't alone. A retired K-9 handler named Victor Morales reached out after watching the video. "I've seen dogs deployed in the worst combat zones," he said in a video call. "What your German Shepherd did, that's training and instinct. If the court tries to take him, I'll testify on Max's behalf, free of charge." Morales wasn't the only one. A flood of former handlers, trainers, and families who had been protected by working dogs began to speak out. Max's story had become a rallying cry. But time was running out. A hearing date was set. The court would decide if Max posed a continued threat and whether he should be removed from the home for evaluation, possibly permanently. In preparation, Jenna compiled a folder of testimonials, photos, and videos of Max with Noah. From the first time they brought the baby home, Max had been glued to his side. He stood guard beside the crib, sat beside the bathtub, lay down during fevers, nudging Noah's hand when he cried. "He's more than a dog," Jenna whispered one night. "He's family." The night before the hearing, Michael couldn't sleep. He went to the garage and sat beside Max, placing his hand on the shepherd's head. "Tomorrow's everything, buddy." Max tilted his head slightly, then lowered it into Michael's lap. At dawn, they left for court. Max would not attend, but his presence would hang over every word spoken. Michael carried the flash drive with the original footage, 2 notarized letters from military trainers, and a stack of printed comments from people around the world. "Let's show them who he really is," Michael said. And as they walked into the courtroom, one truth sat heavy in their hearts. Max had defended their child with everything he had. Now it was time for them to defend Max. The courtroom was tense. The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, casting a sterile glow across the gallery. Wooden benches creaked as reporters, activists, dog behaviorists, and concerned parents filled the space. Some came in support. Others came to see what kind of dog would attack a babysitter and live to be debated about in court. But Max wasn't there. Legally, he couldn't be. The shepherd waited at home under supervised care, classified as a potential threat until the court could decide otherwise. Michael sat stiffly at the front, Jenna beside him, clutching a small plush giraffe, the same one Noah slept with. Her knuckles were white. At the center of it all sat Judge Marianne Claremont, known for her firm but fair demeanor. She glanced at the documents in front of her, adjusted her glasses, and said simply, "Let's begin." The prosecution went first. Emily's lawyer, a sharp-jawed man in an expensive suit, wasted no time laying out their narrative. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is a clear case of a dangerous animal in a domestic environment. My client, Emily Larson, was attacked without provocation while caring for a minor. She required medical attention and continues to suffer emotional distress. This dog acted aggressively and unpredictably. Now ask yourself, what if it had been the child?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Michael kept his jaw clenched. He couldn't speak, not yet. Then it was the defense's turn. Michael stood. He wasn't a trained lawyer, just a father, a husband, a man trying to protect someone who couldn't speak for himself. "My name is Michael Travers. That dog, Max, saved our son's life." He inserted the flash drive into the monitor. The judge nodded. The video played. The same footage, the same living room, the same moment Emily lifted her arm with the baby, and Max, silent and poised, rose and lunged, not with rage but purpose. He didn't bite, he didn't growl, he simply intercepted her arm and barked once, loud, firm enough to make her drop the baby back to the mattress unharmed. Then came the moment that no one saw before. Michael paused the footage. "Zoom in," he told the technician. The screen focused on Emily's face. There it was, rage, not fear. The split second before the incident, her lips curled in frustration, a look no one would have believed if they hadn't seen it. "That," Michael said, turning to the judge, "isn't someone shocked by a dog's aggression. That's someone who got caught." Murmurs filled the courtroom. Jenna stepped forward holding a binder. "Your Honor, we've collected over 200 statements from certified trainers, handlers, veterinarians, and even military K-9 officers. All analyzed this footage. All concluded that Max did not attack. He assessed. He acted with control. He protected our son in the only language he knows." Then she opened the final page. A crayon drawing. Noah's artwork. It showed a stick figure holding hands with a brown scribbled dog. A big red heart floated above their heads. "Your Honor, to our son, Max isn't a pet, he's a guardian." The judge remained quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. "This court recognizes the nuance in cases involving working dogs and children. However, the law also values evidence over assumption. The video shows restraint. The testimonials show context, and the lack of injury shows control." She looked directly at Emily's team. Was there fear? Maybe. Was there an attack? No. A beat of silence. "Max is cleared of all charges. He may return to the home effective immediately." The courtroom exploded in murmurs, some gasping, others sighing with relief. Jenna cried openly. Michael simply closed his eyes and exhaled the breath he didn't know he'd been holding for days. The crowd spilled out into the hallway. Reporters swarmed them, shoving microphones and questions. "How does it feel?" Will Max receive a commendation? Do you think this sets a precedent? Michael held Jenna's hand and smiled at the cameras. He already has everything he needs. He's going home. Back at the house, Max waited near the door. When Michael opened it, the shepherd's tail thumped once, then again. Fast, eager. Noah squealed and ran forward. Max! The dog, trained to hold his ground, broke discipline just this once. He ran straight for the boy, knocking him into a pile of giggles and hugs. Max was home. But more than that, Max had won. The media didn't let go. By the next morning, news stations had already stitched together the narrative. Hero dog saves child from abusive babysitter. Hashtags like #Justice for Max and #Hero Shepherd trended across every platform. Comment sections overflowed with people demanding reform in pet behavior laws and stricter background checks for domestic workers. But for Michael, Jenna, and little Noah, the world outside faded into the background. They were home. The sunlight filtered through the kitchen window as Jenna placed a bowl of water beside Max's favorite spot. Michael, still running on adrenaline and disbelief, sat with Noah in his lap, reading aloud from one of his bedtime books even though it was barely noon. Max lay near them, his eyes half closed, tail occasionally thudding against the floor. It wasn't peace, not entirely, but it was the beginning of something better. That evening, as quiet settled over the house, Michael found himself standing in the doorway of Noah's room. The boy slept curled up, clutching both his stuffed giraffe and a paw of real fur. Max, who had made himself comfortable at the foot of the bed. The dog's ears twitched slightly, always listening. Jenna stood beside him, whispering, "You think he knows?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, I think he always knew." The days that followed blurred together in waves of press inquiries, legal wrap-ups, and long overdue rest. Emily had been taken into custody pending further investigation, not just for her behavior caught on camera, but because the footage revealed other concerns the authorities were now pursuing. But this wasn't her story anymore. This was Max's. When the state's K-9 department contacted the Travers family with an offer, honorary badge, ceremony, media coverage, Michael hesitated. He asked Max, half-jokingly, what he wanted. Max simply stared at him, alert and calm, before walking toward Noah's door and sitting down. That was his answer. Still, they agreed to a quiet event. No stage, no red carpet, just a small gathering at the local precinct where Max received an honorary medal and the title of Guardian K-9. A framed certificate now hung on the living room wall, right above his bed. Reporters had tried to dig into Max's past. He wasn't a trained police dog, not military. No accolades before this. Just a rescue, adopted by the Travers family from a local shelter after being found abandoned in a field, underweight and shaking. Turns out some heroes don't come with a resume. They come with instinct and loyalty and heart. 1 week later, Michael installed a new set of cameras, this time not out of suspicion, but gratitude. He set one to record the living room continuously. What it captured the following morning wasn't dramatic. No villains, no courts, no emergencies, just Noah in his footy pajamas, toddling toward Max. He climbed onto the dog's side like a mountain, giggling uncontrollably. Max shifted just slightly to balance him, then rested his head down again. Safe. Solid. A protector. Michael watched the feed from his phone, smiling. This wasn't the footage that would go viral, but it was the one that mattered. Because for every shocking headline and viral moment, the real story wasn't about a dog attacking a babysitter. It was about a dog choosing to act, to intervene, to protect the smallest voice in the room, even when it came at a cost. Max wasn't just a good boy. He was the best boy. And from that moment on, he'd never have to prove it again. If you believe animals know more than we think, share this story.